There we go. And actually, I should have done live on Facebook first, but because that always takes me a second. But that's okay. Let's see, share on. Let's see here. Welcome, everybody. If you are just signing in, we're just about to get started. I am going live on Facebook, on Shoebox Projects Facebook. And there we go. Let me just make sure it is starting. Looks like it. I was downloading a video earlier and it was taking a while, so hopefully that won't interfere. But no, it looks like we are good. All right. Okay, got it. Well, welcome everybody again. I am Christine Shoemaker with Shoebox Projects. And if you're listening in or if you're joining us, it's so great to see everybody. And this exhibition is Collaborate. And it is a group exhibition of artists that did our Shoebox Lab 6-month workshop. And so we wanted to, share their work on Shoebox Project's website. And we were going to have an exhibition in the physical space, our physical world. But, with COVID and, all those logistics and stuff, it didn't quite work out. But I'm at least glad that we got to do it this way. So, it's so, so great to see everybody's work together and to hear you talk about it. So I am going to put the link again in chat for if you didn't get to see the show. Oops, no, that's not the link. The show, and I'll share it on YouTube also when I post this on YouTube. And what I'll do is I'm going to be sharing the screen as the artists talk about their work. So just a little bit about the 6-month, the workshop that we did is a 6-month professional development workshop. We went over, everything, social media, websites, goals, pricing, a lot of the resources and tools artists need in their careers. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how, everybody does moving forward. And I saw that, Anne. Trying to balance the screen out. We're all artists, we get it. But no, it's so great to see everybody because our workshop ended 2 or 3 months ago now, something like that. So yeah, it's great to see everybody, and maybe eventually, has it been that long? Oh, time has just flown. I swear. I feel like I see everybody on Facebook all the time. Anyway, it doesn't feel like that long. But we, maybe eventually we can all get together in person, maybe, a picnic or something like that. So yeah, that would be great. Maybe when the next lab is done, we could do something there. We'll have to see how everybody's feeling. But right now, yeah, anyway. So again, thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let me share my screen here. And all right, can everybody see that okay? Great. There, if you go to the link, there is more information about the exhibit. And it's on view for this month through June 4th. I think through June 3rd or June 4th. And so, there's, I think, 14 artists participating, and, it was such a great group. I mean, I love bringing artists together, forming communities, now, hopefully a lot of you are following each other, and, you'll see each other out and about at openings. And, so this is, putting something like this together and bringing people together is what I love to do most. So I'm really glad we were able to do that. I don't think Adrienne is here. She was one of the artists who participated. You can read about her if you go to the website and see her work. And then we have Alison, and I don't think Alison is here either. And hopefully they'll log in and we'll be able to backtrack, and so they'll be able to talk about their work. And then I don't think Alison Woods is here either. Let's see. And then we have Anne. Anne is here. All right, Anne, do you want to tell us about the series, what you're working on, who you are?
Okay, well, this is one of the many tracks I'm working on. These are paper weavings intersecting LA area freeways with photographs of traffic. And everything is printouts. I didn't cut up maps because it was just too precarious, and I'm glad I didn't, because like one of them I had changed my mind about what photo would work. So I took all the pictures myself in traffic. I used to have a really bad commute, or just driving around and being stuck in traffic, which, you know, happens all the time here. Is there not a rush hour in LA? That is the question. Let's see. So I live and work on the west side of LA, and I do lots of different things. Lately, my inclination has been towards work with fiber arts, which this is related because it's weaving. And I do like to weave unconventional things, either paper or upcycled strips of fabric. And I'm still working it out. I'd say I'm still in an experimental phase. With the map things, I'm hoping to do a series next with state maps combined with pictures that I took in the state with a picture. Something iconic. For instance, the California one is going to be with a picture of the poppy fields up in Lancaster, because it's bright orange. The only state I haven't been to is Alaska, so I'll just do white paper for Alaska. What else? Anyone have questions for me?
How does this relate? Because you did a series where you were doing on your road trip, you'd like take photos of the backs of trucks. I mean, how does this relate to the rest of your work in that way?
Well, the back of trucks, that was another commute exercise. And that was to maintain my sanity while I was on the ramp from the 105 to the 605. And it is like where all the trucks go, because that's like the main feeder highway from the port to points both north and east. So there are just tons of semis with containers on them. I guess what I'd like to do is, for that stuff, get like daily things that happen for me, and then I make a series out of it. I always work in series. One-offs are very rare in my world. And I'll sort of do experimental things, and then I'll latch onto something, and then I'll do a bunch of it. But like the photography, I do use a lot of photographic material, and I'd say it's a memory aid for me, and finding like my place in the world. And I don't know, I sort of translate things through the photography and change it up. I usually do not just do straight photographs.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
Just two quick questions. You said that they look like you did weave them together, but then I thought you said that you didn't cut them up. Are they're
Oh,
actually?
no. I didn't cut up the original maps. So I
Oh, you worked with a copy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I scanned the maps and then.
Okay, because they definitely look woven. And my question was, the scale is very interesting, the 5 by 5. Do you imagine doing this on a larger scale, or do you think it'll go somewhere bigger or different, or do you see it at this petite size?
I really like the small scale, partly because I have such a huge amount of art inventory already with larger pieces that I don't want more larger things. And I like the aspect that they're little units so that you can like shuffle them around, and perhaps a person could buy a few of them and then have different arrangements. I like the idea of like little components making a bigger thing, but it's fluid. It's not like a set monster thing that's like 6 by 6 feet.
I'm curious if you thought about changing up the patterns within the weaving.
Oh, you mean different weave structures?
Different weave structures, or if it's, I mean, these, which is a very straightforward weave structure, also speak to the sort of digital world and that kind of are reminiscent of pixelation. I'm not sure if that's intentional as well, but if you were to, get more involved in how the things were woven together, if that interests you at all in that, or if it's intentionally very simple. And
this one, it's an intentional plain weave. I experimented a little bit with, I was weaving underwear prints that I had designed, like reject stuff that would have gone in the garbage. So they were patterns, and I was weaving those together as well. And I tried some different weave structures, but I was working in like really 3 by 3 inch, which is like tiny, and the sort of the same, like, I don't know, it was like 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch cuts. And it was a little bit too hard with paper, but who knows? I might get bored with plain weave and then adventure on.
Dave, I saw your hand. Did you have a question, or was it answered, or?
Yeah, the question was that's 5 by 5 inches. And I think that's a great size. And I think they actually doing the simple weave that's kind of pixelated like this, I think that really works perfectly for what you're trying to, for what I think you're trying to do here. I mean, I love them.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think for this map thing, the plain weave works well because the maps have grids on them too. And the streets of LA mostly are grids until you get to Culver City. And, so anyway,
I like seeing them like this, even just, as this grid of 9 like this. It's almost kind of mesmerizing or meditative looking at this and trying to decipher, like, well, what's under all the squares, and just it just kind of draws you in and takes you somewhere else, in your mind, and it's about your road trips too. So it looks really good like this.
And I'll definitely, agree that, I mean, even though I knew they were 5 by 5 inches, in my mind, I have, since you sent these to me, I've always imagined them like 12 by 12. I've definitely imagined them bigger, even though, I saw the number. I mean, not that big, Dave, but yeah. Yeah. But no, they're really great. Congratulations, Anne. Awesome. Well, let's see. I saw Adrienne's here. Adrienne, do you want to talk about your work? Did you? Oh, you're still muted, Adrienne.
Okay. Sorry, I
There we
was
go.
waiting on some other wrong Zoom, I guess.
Oh, no.
So sorry about that. Well, first I want to tell you, do you have my pictures or do I need to bring them up? How do I do that?
I have them up. Everybody can see
Oh, you
them.
have, you
Yeah.
can, okay, because I'm on the phone instead of my iPad.
Yeah.
My interest is in people. I'm especially interested in faces because I find that the faces can tell you so much about a person. And if you look closely, you can understand a little bit more about them, not only physically, but emotionally. And during the pandemic, I found it was even harder to do that because everybody had these distracting masks on, covering up with wild masks or just, some are smaller, some on your nose. You're just not really looking at the faces and just being able to understand anything about them anymore. And so I started this work called Above and Below. And it was above whatever you can see above the mask and whatever you can't see below the mask. And I started with the above the mask because that's what everybody was seeing at the time. And what I found was that you needed something to focus on. And what it really was were the eyes, because eyes can tell you the soul of the person. And if you look at the size of the pupils, the direction that they're looking at, or just you can tell whether the eyes are open a little bit, they're squinting. And I started with the, as if the person was sort of caught a surprise. So just looking up real fast. And then as I painted some more, I noticed that you needed to add sometimes a little bit more, maybe a little bit of a prop or glasses or maybe something of a background. And then I thought, well, now I need to figure out a way to tell something about a person, the part that you're not seeing anymore. And that was below the mask. And you didn't have the eyes anymore to focus on, but you now have the mouth, which really became the main focus instead of the eyes. Because the mouth would, whether you puckered with it, whether you put your hand next to it, or if you were smiling a little bit, but just had your mouth open a little bit. Some people bite their lips. So that again told you something about the person. And then I also felt that since it was not the part that's being seen, they needed to be a darker image. So that's why I made it more of a monochromatic pastels that seem sort of faded. And once in a while, I'd add a little bit of color, maybe for the lips or something, just to give a little bit of emphasis on something else. And then even added a pet or a different pose, just again, to give you something more about the person. And so that's how I worked on that.
Didn't mean to do that, sorry. Awesome, thank you, Adrienne. Does anybody have any questions for Adrienne?
Are these, they're all acrylic and oil?
No, well, they're acrylic and oil on the above the portraits, anything with all the color, and then the bottom ones are pastels.
Okay.
And they're all very small. They're no more than 12 inches. Starting area. I thought what I would do is try these in larger pieces and see how, because they can be more dramatic.
Awesome. Was there another question in there?
Oh, just comments. Hi, Adrienne. I like it, the mystery of them. Obviously, in these times, we can look at it as reflecting the past, 2.5, 3 years, everything. So I think it's a really interesting take on that, what you've created, the series. I like how you changed it up with the monochromatic. And there's just this sense of mystery, because we haven't gotten to see everybody. We've gotten to see each other here on the Zooms, which are wonderful. But in real life, yeah, just I like the sense of mystery, as each image can stand on its own. The bottom image there with the 3 in there, I think that's really wonderful. It's really interesting how the smile, you know, I know you talked about the eyes reflecting, and then, but the smile, and that's something that I, you know, I'm sure all of us, we've thought about. It's like, you know, whether we're out or not out, but if we are somewhere with a mask, it's like when we talk, just the natural inclination of our expression to smile. It's like, you know, I think, can people see it in my eyes if I'm smiling or at them? So yeah, it just gets you thinking about all these things. But that bottom image there, I feel the joy, just the 3 smiles. Is that you and family? I don't know, or friends, or
me and friends. Actually, that's one of the things I didn't mention, is that I focused on friends and family for this group, because I mean, that's who I was around during the pandemic. So this is, you know, or my pet, you know, my dog. But these are the people that I was around during that time. So those are the ones that I could show a little bit more about what their identity was all about.
Awesome. Thank you, Adrienne. All right, let's see. We have, I don't think the Alisons let's see. Alison, did they come in? No, I don't think so. Let's see. All right, and let's see, Aurora.
Hi.
Hey, are you available? Or
I am available. I can multitask. I'm learning to do that well. So this series that we have here, I've called it Domestic Geographies, but it really started as a series I was calling COVID Living Rooms, because at the beginning, it was all a bunch of living room images that I started at the beginning of the pandemic back in March. And I had lived through SARS in China. And I know everyone on this call has already heard really this story, but I knew how profound, you know, life in the pandemic might be. So I wanted to record it from the beginning. So I was taking articles from the New York Times and sort of layering them in the background to kind of give the context of what was happening in the broader world. But then I was thinking about how every one of us was just trapped in our living rooms. Well, I know there are essential workers that weren't, but there are, you know, so many of us were just in our living rooms by ourselves and getting all of our news just through our phones or our laptops, which is why you might see like a little laptop on a table or a little phone. And then the newspaper articles kind of represent what we were seeing about the broader world. But as you notice, there are no people in any of these. And in the past, I've done lots of series with more figurative and people involved, but just to kind of reflect the loneliness. I'm a big fan of using fabric in my work. I've done it since the late 90s on and off. And so I started taking repurposed and recycled fabric and stitching these scenes. As we began to kind of be able to go outside, there are more outdoor scenes. And as the pandemic kind of loosened, you know, some of the other pieces have now touched on things like the war in Afghanistan, climate change, and kind of going beyond just the coronavirus theme. Since the class, I've become super interested in fabric itself. And I've actually started doing a lot of pattern design so that I can be making my own fabric and then using that in my work. So some of my more recent work now uses some patterns that I made myself, some fabric, and others, things like my own used clothing, friends' used clothing, fabric I just had in drawers for years. Because I really like the idea of just using what you have. I like the energy of just rough sketches. So I usually sketch out the scene and then just cut it and stitch it the way it is without really like refining it into tight, precise lines. So yeah, that's basically what we've got.
Awesome. These are wonderful.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Aurora?
I was going to say this one here, of course, I was very focused on babies and wanting to adopt. And so the birth rates were really low during COVID. And so some of them touched on that issue. So it's funny that one's there. And it was part of me kind of dealing with my longing. But as you can see, everything turned out perfectly.
Yay!
Yay!
Aurora, it's really been interesting to see, your earlier pieces as you've developed and, built on the series. So that's something, seeing them all together now is wonderful. What's really interesting to me is the perspective. It's different ones. Sometimes it's skewed. It's this way, it's that way. So I like that. It's kind of jarring. And I guess that kind of is almost a metaphor for what everybody's been, the world, things that have been happening. So yeah, that's just something that I was noticing in them, just that kind of the way, the foreground, the background, but ultimately what happens, I look at it and I'm pulled towards the background, and I guess it's in the foreground some of them, but the text. So it just, yeah, I just like the way you've your compositions are, some of them are unusual and skewed, and I like that they're not perfect, and the foreground, midground, background are different. So
I appreciate it. Yeah, I kind of like it, like, the one couch and stuff, to almost change perspective midway, and kind of, I've always been really into things like Indian miniatures, and different sort of very kind of types of art that almost look intentionally a little two-dimensional, because I think these days, we have photographs. If we wanted an exact replica, we could have that. But I find it, when the perspective is just a little off, or when it's purposely flat, I think we can focus almost more on the patterns, and something draws at least me in when it's just a little bit off.
Totally. Are there any more questions or comments for Aurora?
I just want to say I'm really enjoying the series, and either you've been doing tons and tons of work, or I'm not remembering seeing it before, but it seems like it's really developed and expanded, and it's just very, very enjoyable to look at it. And that one, I can't scroll, but the one with the cinder block bricks made out of little pink sheets or something is just a phenomenal little moment. Just so beautiful, really. I love just what everybody was saying, all the different perspectives and levels, and that they're not all the same, but they really hold together. They're very expressive. It's very good.
Thank you.
I also love the idea of adding your own fabrics to it. I think that's really terrific. I think that'll even add more mystery to your work. I just love how your combination of, you use all the spaces wonderfully, even with all the words that you have in the background from the newspaper print. You just make sure every piece is covered. It's really nice.
I'm curious, with making your own fabrics, is it going to, and patterns for fabrics, is it going to make you end up wanting to work larger, to include more of that kind of work?
I don't know. And there's some that aren't here that are a little bit larger. I
love the intimate nature of these, and the scaling with the type and everything else about them. But I can see how, if you were putting a lot of work into creating patterns on fabric as well, that you would want to be able to like really get into that being more of a part of what you're putting out there?
Yeah, and I go back and forth because I've found in general, I do enjoy the smaller ones. I feel like I have more patience for the detail. And when it starts getting large, it's just physically unwieldy. And so I like the small, and I like the scale of the text in comparison to the image, because if I were to continue to use newspaper, then in a big piece, the text kind of just disappears almost. And at the same time, yeah, with making some of my own fabric, there's almost a temptation to go into it almost in a quilterly way and make it like a quilt, but I'll just have to see where it goes. Yeah, I keep, every time I go large, I decide to go back small again. So we'll just see.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aurora.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, Barrie.
So my work has not changed very much since we were in our group. Some of these pieces were the pieces that were in the show I had last year, and a few of them are newer. I'm finding right now that working on my work is really frustrating because it takes so long to get anything done. It's, super nitpicky little markings over and over and over again. And I'm kind of trying to work out exactly how I feel about that. But I like the end products. So the work is primarily about taking bits and pieces of the same images that I've created. Like this image that we're looking at right now is 4 feet by 8 feet in size. And a lot of the other pieces that you're seeing are basically created from details that are repurposed from that image, because the original drawing that this is done it's digital. So I like revisiting things in a way and getting to know them in different ways and elaborate on them in different ways. As I said in this, it's kind of the way a landscape when you're a child. It's part real and observed in there and part what you make of it, and can change depending on where you go with different bits and pieces of those things. So the newest pieces that I have are these songbird pieces that all feature fairy wrens. The first one of these was actually done for an album cover, a project. It's called Bird Song, that's being done to raise money in conjunction with Audubon, I believe, to raise money to save songbirds from extinction. So I did one of those right after my show, and I liked working on them, so I kept making some songbird pictures.
And where was your show again? Just so everybody knows.
Oh, it was at Gallery 825, the
yeah.
Los Angeles Arts Association gallery last year. And it's what I basically did for a lot of the first year of the pandemic, was making these works that, like this work is based on the Time Garden work, which is the picture of the seagull. I'm not sure if we've seen that one yet, but it's taken from, you can see the cross hatching and stuff in the image. Of what looks sort of like a fence in a garden is really, they're like markings, like hatch marks, like counting days. And I'm doing more of the embroidery and hand stitch. That's the piece that it's of. It comes from like one tiny little bit on that, and is redrawn on top of it.
Yeah, talk about the hand stitching, the embroidery. It looks like you're also piecing,
Yeah, well, what happened was with the hand stitching is something that I've done a lot of my whole life, embroidering and hand stitching, and something that I've been thinking about incorporating into my drawings for a long time. And the way these things started was with the larger pieces, the paper I wanted to print them on, and the printer that I have, I can only print to a certain size. The main, like this one is, I don't know, it's like maybe 3 feet by 5 feet. But the paper that it's printed on, which is a very heavyweight paper, which allows me to draw on top of the print and gives it, makes it lay flat nicely and do all kinds of other things nicely, you can only print up to 24 by 30 inches. It's a limitation. They don't make it larger. So I started sewing the paper together. And this one, for instance, the brown stitching is actually, those are tiles. They're separate prints that are sewn together. And then the colored stitching, circles it's embellishment. It came back on top of it to embellish what was there. And I liked that. And so I started, not on this one doesn't have any hand stitching, but on many of the smaller ones, I had done these drawings that are ink drawing and digital drawing. And then I started doing stitching on top of them. Like this is purely decorative stitching, to bring another texture and layer element to the pieces.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions for Barrie?
Hi, Barrie.
Hi.
First, I want to say they're amazing. When I had looked at the website before, could have just seen them. Yeah, I mean, so intricate, and I love that. And you're saying nitpicky, and I've done some work with like little minute markers, micro things and stuff, but your things are so rich, and there's so many literal layers now that you're having the hand stitching on them, but there's just so much to pull you in, to look at the mark making, the shapes, the colors, and they're really engaging on so many different levels. I guess my question was, you talked about the paper and the printer. What type of printer do you use for these?
I have an Epson P9000 SureColor printer, which can print. It's an inkjet printer, archival pigment prints, 10 colors of ink, I believe. And it can print up to 44 inches by 96 inches from a Mac. It can print, I think, bigger than that if you're not printing from a Mac. I think the 96 is a Mac limitation, not a printer limitation. But I've done large format printing for like 25 years, 30 years. So this particular paper, it's made by Premier, and it's actually, it was originally a paper that was made by Epson that they discontinued. It's very similar to Epson Ultra Smooth paper, but it's a much heavier stock, which if you're gonna sew with it, allows it to have enough structural integrity that it doesn't just fall apart when you're hand stitching on it. And the hand stitching is done actually by punching the stitches before you actually sew through the paper. So a lot of people are like, well, it's really very rigid, very specific, very mechanical, like that can't be hand stitching, but it's not hard to do that on paper. If one of the things I do is book binding, and you pre-punch everything when you do that. So it's sort of almost like lacing.
Yeah, thank you. Amazing, Barrie.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barrie. All right, let's see who we have next. Dave. Let's see, is Dave still here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see you on my screen. Great.
So these come, well, okay. So if you saw these before I, actually manipulate them, you would look and think it's like, what? I don't get it. It's basically wood cubes and cut pieces of wood just laid out on a piece of MDF or piece of plywood. And the metal, the little circles are actually metal rods that I cut and drill and put in it. And then once it's kind of glued together, I just take Gorilla Glue and squeeze it out and let it kind of go where it needs to go and kind of brush it here and there. And let it sit for a few minutes and then hit it with a torch. And kind of control the burn. I don't work this way anymore because it caused a reaction in me that lasted 24 hours. And Carol's like, yeah, you got to find something else to work with. So, you know, I'm kind of moving on into something else. These kind of like, I have friends who are architects, and they looked at them and thought, wow, these look like you're looking at a building or, you know, some city from above. And so I kind of called them dystopian architecture. Then I started to add plexiglass. On my website, you can actually see the details. So those are 2 pieces of plexiglass. And in the middle of this one is actually industrial hosing that I've cut and put in between. And then the round things are actually copper in caps. Same process, you know, burn it, add the plexiglass later. You know, the hard part is like figuring out how I'm gonna do the plexiglass. Sometimes it's like, I made the piece, it's like, oh shoot, how am I gonna put the plexiglass on there? Because I gotta cut grooves. So, you know, then I start to like, oh, I've cut the grooves first. Why didn't I think of that? But, you know, this piece is in a show starting tomorrow at Shoebox. You know, I play with the titles. There's aluminum angle iron on this one, you know, the metal rods again. You know, I have to cut all these rods and grind them down and polish them up and smooth them out. And then that's 8-gauge copper wire at the bottom, which is difficult to work with because I'm developing arthritis in both my hands. And so after a few hours, I kind of pay for it the next day. This is about 3 feet by a foot, to give you a size. Many of these, there's multiples of them. Some of these, there's only one. I like to do series of 3. So some of these, you see just one, but there's actually 2 others that are more or less identical, but with its own, you know, slight variations. These are copper tubing that's just put into the wood cubes and then, you know, hit with a torch for as long as I want. There's actually 3 of these. So this is just one of them. The variation will occur where the larger cylinders are placed on the piece. Other than that, they'll be more or less identical in you know, the way those pieces are laid out. I like playing with materials, and I like playing with kind of an industrial, I don't know. There's 4 of these. Comes from my background. I wanted to be an architect when I was in college and realized I couldn't do the math, and then ended up being a math teacher later on in life, which is kind of ironic. And a lot of this is made with just materials I have left over. You know, it's like, I got stuff. It's like, what can I do with this? And, you know, it saves me buying material. You know, the downside is all this stuff takes up space. And I envy people who work, you know, on flat surfaces, because you can just stack that up and put it away in a drawer. But I have a 16 by 14 foot storage place that's kind of filled to the top, and, you know, with all this stuff wrapped up and put away. Few of these have sold, and it's funny that, you know, I'll just post something on Instagram and someone will contact me, how much? And, you know, okay, you know, great, work out a price. Where do you live? I live in Canada. And I'm like, oh, great. You know, so you got to figure out shipping, you know, to another country. I have friends in France that want to buy one, but I'm like, yeah, you figure that out, you know. And I've moved on to other series now. So I've kind of moved away from this. The 2 pieces that kind of pushed me over the edge health-wise are not in this. They're actually big 8-foot, 7-foot towers that I did. And I was just, I spent too long working on them, even with a respirator outside with a fan. It was just wasn't a good outcome. So I've moved on to other surface materials and same, whatnot.
So you said, is there any paint involved at all, or is it all?
No paint.
The color comes from just the fire?
Color comes from the glue.
Oh, okay.
I did find a different way of working with the glue, and that's on some later series that you don't have here. They are on my website, and I found that if I put the glue on a surface, this is just straight onto a wood surface, and so the glue reacts differently. And sometimes I'll take a water bottle and mist it, and that tends to cause the glue to react differently when you're hitting it with the torch. But I found that if I put the glue on a surface that has some type of coating on it, like masonite, or not masonite, like a formica, and then I put the glue on there and then I hit it with a torch, it literally melts the glue. It doesn't create this bubbling like you see here. It melts the glue and it starts to bring in colors of blues and greens and so on. And so it gives it a very leathery, I don't know, skin-like feel, almost like an oil slick that has this weird burned look to it. I did that on, maybe 6 or 7 pieces, and then I've moved on to other things now. I kind of get bored with stuff, and so I'll do stuff like this, and then, I'm kind of done. I don't know what to do next, and oh, look at this, I can do something else.
I'm really
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm really surprised that they're wood. When I saw them, I thought they were the whole piece was metal.
No, and that's
it was rusted patina kind of thing that's happening. So it's interesting to hear how they're made.
Right. I mean, that's a lot of people look at it and they think, oh, so this is metal. And I'm like, no, it's MDF or it's plywood. But when you add the Gorilla Glue, and you kind of let it sit, Gorilla Glue will expand 4 times whatever the thickness is. So if you apply it relatively thick, it's going to get even thicker, and it will bubble up quite a bit. As you burn it, you can break down the surface layer and start to almost shape it with a torch. It will catch on fire, and it gets kind of scary. But there's times I've done it, and Carol stood outside, with a respirator on and a water gun, misting to put out the fire. I'll be like, now, hit it now, So there's,
Actual glue that was making. Was it the actual glue?
By accident,
Was it the actual glue that was making you sick? What do you think that it was that was making you sick?
It was, okay, so there's other pieces that I'd worked on. These go quick. Once I put the glue on it, I'm done in about 10, 15 minutes. That's all it takes. And then they dry rock hard. You can put these outside and weather's not going to hurt them. Mm-hmm. The other ones where I was using the Gorilla Glue and melting it on a surface where it couldn't really absorb into, they were much larger, and I was spending an hour at a time outside on them. And even with a respirator, it was just stupidity on my part. I hadn't changed the filters. I was out there too long, and I felt fine till about an hour later. It's like I need to go lay down, and I was having problems breathing. And
the Gorilla
my
Glue,
lungs are clear. I've had chest X-rays. There's nothing wrong. Everything's fine. But I just decided, I'm old, but I'm not that old. I still have some more life left.
I was just wondering if there's a different kind of a glue that you could use. Maybe it's the Gorilla Glue itself. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I like what the Gorilla Glue does. I mean, I've gone through I buy big bottles of it. I go through. It doesn't take as much as you think. This isn't even half a bottle. You don't have to apply a lot to it, but you can see the edges. It gives that look like it's metal, and it's oxidized and so on.
Very cool effect.
All All right, any other questions?
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Marta.
oh, just Dave, have you've taken these industrial materials and kind of with, you say they're wood, but they look like they have years of patina or age, and you've elevated these materials, and it's really interesting architecturally, as you say. And as Christine was flipping by them, it's kind of turning my head and looking, you have some on the wall, just interesting, the different ways how you might display them can give it a whole different feel, like the wall versus.
I mean, I'd love to like have a whole wall where I can put all these pieces up, because there's more. This isn't all of them. There's other ones I do, and some of them I will use. I'll sift concrete onto the surface, and some I will use wood dyes that I'll pipette on and add some colors here and there. It's just playing around with stuff and seeing what happens. And I'm lucky. I have a very good photographer who'll come to my house and he'll shoot all these. These are all shot on my driveway on a backing that he puts up. And the details, he'll get right in there and shoot up like really micro details on these things, or macros, micros. And it's wonderful. So sometimes I feel like he should just do a show of just photographs. Sometimes that just stands by itself.
I was just thinking of, you could almost make a whole wall of these, kind of like what Louise Nevelson used to do, and building up with her black figures, or not figures, but big blocks. You could almost build a whole wall with these and having the different textures come out.
Right.
Be interesting.
Love to do that. Have to find the space.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. I don't think Debra's here, unless she came in. Doesn't look like it. Let's see. And Julie's here.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. It's really great to see you all again. These are very small, little mini mosaics. A lot of the work that I do is community collaborations and things that take weeks and months and work with a lot of people. And so I really wanted to experiment with sort of doing something supposedly small and quick. These are made with stained glass and with some of them with broken plates, china dishes, which is a form of mosaic that's called picassiette. And it's also, I have this love of, like Dave, I love materials and love metal, and I've collected baking tins forever, not knowing what to do with them. So one day I thought, oh, well, that's the frame. Let me figure out how I can do little mini mosaics inside these little tiny tin frames. And so that's kind of what these are. They're kind of, they're like 3 by 4 inches, and you can hang them on a wall, but they're pretty small. But I put magnets in them so you can make them, call them refrigerator art. They're kind of great little handmade trinkets. This is a mandala series. So those are the blue S is from the it's called a longevity design in Chinese. When you go to the Chinese restaurant, it's all around the edge of the bowl. So those are cut out, and then I had a lot of fun with playing with color and how to make longevity mandalas. It's about 3 inches across. The other thing that I was trying to do, a couple of years ago, I took a cartooning and drawing class that kind of rocked my world and got me to draw more than I ever had before. But very simple, very silly, very fun, free drawing. And these are an attempt to, what I love about that work and that program is sort of just a light relaxed playfulness and just sort of just start drawing and see what happens, which again, going back to doing large scale public art and community projects, you don't get that same whimsy and ease. And I was trying to put them together. That was my intention, is to try to bring this playfulness and openness to experimentation into mosaic. I have not yet figured out how to do it quickly. I wish that it was quick. It takes me forever to make these, but I've really enjoyed making them, and they're faster than a 6-month project. So that's what they are.
Awesome. Is this, like part of your regular practice, or, I mean, I know you're creating like larger mosaic pieces. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, well, that's mostly up until the pandemic, I've been working, teaching, mostly being a teaching artist. And I make a lot of stuff, but I haven't really working with you. And this is kind of the first time to try to really, I do too many different things all over the place, and trying to focus and figure out a body of work, which I'm so impressed with all of you guys and what you do. So mostly I was working in the nonprofit sector and working with kids in placement and doing community projects with them. And not really having time to do my own work. So this really came on. I had done one of these kind of the bunny. I had made the bunny and fallen in love with him kind of right at the end of 2019, and then got laid off and was like, well, let me see what I can do with this. But the flip side, and this has always been a part of my practice, this stuff is playful and silly and little pink chickens made out of teacups and very fun. And then I also have this whole other, but I'm trying to make these big, heavy sculptures that are in a way very minimalist and single color and just texture. But the one that I got finished took me a year to make. It's very hard to work and teach and have a body of work that I mean, I know other people do that. It takes a year to make a painting, I guess, but though I love those bigger projects, I have not figured out how to work more quickly or get them done faster. And I think on the first day of our group, Debra, somebody said, sounds to me like you're trying to have 3 full-time jobs. And that's really stuck with me. It's like, oh man, it's true. Trying to teach and trying to make these and get them out there and sell them, and then also do these bigger sculptures and get them in shows. And I just have not found a way to rein myself in to just do one thing. So I'm trying to just learn to love it the way that it is, and keep working on all the different projects. And I'm hoping to have 5 of those things done, that big, which is also that one, it was it was in a show at the Arboretum, that big sculpture. But that's all made with plates. Again, that's made with the bottom pieces of plates. So it's, if there's a thread through any of it, it's the playing with material and the transformation of material, and trying to kind of make it not necessarily unrecognizable, but to change the viewer's relationship with it. But in the sculptures, I'm trying to make it look soft, and it's this hard thing that I have to grind and work on a grinder and work on a sander, and every little piece is fit, and it takes forever. And then when it gets done, it's so soft, you can pet it like a dog, or it's like this beautiful, soft form that you can touch. And I love that transformation. So that's why I won't give up on those darn things.
Awesome.
Julie, these just, they make me smile. I know you were talking about them, during the class and everything, and I think you have a really unique way of presenting this mosaics by the material that you've placed them in. You've done a wonderful job, just because I had done some mosaics years ago too, and I know how hard it is, and you're working miniature. They look really, really wonderful, and they're just look so well crafted, and they make me smile. And that's just, something that we need, art, something. And I like that there's art, they're an art object. I like that it's decorative and it can be functional. So I like that. Don't stop doing all the things you're doing. Keep doing it. It kind of reminds me, in Italy, those like micro mosaics, where the Italian glass is cut so small, but these are just wonderful. And what you were saying about incorporating your drawing into them, I think like the rectangle one, the one with the road and the house, it looks like, I think, second down there. You've managed with this 2D object to create this sense of pulling you into a scene, a 3-dimensional scene. So, and being that you're working so tiny, they're really wonderful. So congratulations on
Thank you.
I think it's really interesting what you were saying about your other work and this idea of transferring something that's hard into something that's soft. I find it really fascinating looking at these, that what you said about the drawings and this idea of you just start, I have a sketchbook practice that I just draw every morning, whatever comes into my head, just, begin, see where it takes me, depends on the materials, drawing with whatever happens to be there. It's kind of like morning dump kind of thing. But I think this is really fascinating to me, that translating that into something that usually has to be so premeditated as a mosaic, and then hearing you talk about this other work where you're taking something that's really hard and taking it to the point where it's soft and pettable and completely other than it's like you're almost intentionally making something difficult for yourself in the sense of the transformation, which is really cool and really fascinating. That's not a bad thing. And it is really interesting because you have come up with these things that look, they have this kind of like whimsy and sort of like, this is what came from, these little pieces I had, and this is what, it turned it into. But it's just fascinating to me that like, you're basically starting with one thing and seeing this thing and thinking like, okay, this is how I do this. But, it is almost like working at cross purposes in a way. Yeah. Which is really, as obviously part of your process and part of what's important to, the way you do it. And it's very cool.
Thank you. I think I love that, getting up and drawing every day, and something that was never a part of my life until the last few years. But it's the love, sculptors and artists, there's a love of materiality, these objects and these things. And long before I did any of this, I collected stuff, and I collected ceramic and glass. And I look at these things and I'm like, this would be so much easier as a painting. But these little china teacups and these little pieces, when they're done, my photography is not that great, but the antique object teacup that you break and then turn into this chicken, it has such a lusciousness to it, even though it's this silly little chicken for your refrigerator, but the glass has a depth to it. And I really appreciate what you said about cross purposes, because I'm like, why do I have to do this hard, difficult thing? But then I go in and I look at the materials and I touch the materials and I love them, and then I want to do it more. So
no, that's totally.
Oh, you got muted, Barrie.
I think it's completely, it's fascinating, and keep doing it.
And Julie, I realized we decided to give Blue Bunny and Red Bird different names. I don't know if you saw, but we changed different names. I apologize about that.
Oh, wow. That's no problem. No problem.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julie. These are so great, especially to see them together.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right. I don't think Kathryn's here. I saw her earlier, but I'm surprised she's not here. Let's see. And then Lucas isn't here. Who else do we have? Marta. All right, go for it, Marta.
Okay. Nice to see everybody.
You too.
First, I want to say thank you, Christine, for the lab. We get to be we were the initial group, so that's nice to be part of that. So thank you for this opportunity, and it's been wonderful to see everybody's work. So this is my series called Beyond, and they're all photos. All these are photographs. They are all created in camera. I did no digital manipulation. It's just the scenes I set up. So just so you know, a little background on me, those of you who are in the group, I live with a visual disability of bad light sensitivity. I'm fortunate, my visual acuity is 20/20 and my color perception is 100% when tested. But having a light sensitivity as a human being, a photographer, it's hard because light, any kind of light, I feel, the eyes, the head. So with that background, and I've been, coming out more with my physical challenges. So what happened was I wasn't able to do outdoor photography when this happened to me, the light sensitivity. So I decided to create my own miniature indoor scenes and setup. And these are all done in my apartment with what I have. I don't have any fancy tools or lights or anything. The artworks are inspired and informed by the body, physiological processes, botany, science. I like to explore opposites and dichotomies of strength within fragility, moments of stillness, transformation, and then of course, beauty and decay. By nature, any cut flower is dead, but I like working with elements that are past their normal life cycle and kind of giving them new life. The elements to me, they reflect the ephemerality, imperfections, fragility, and the transience of our life. I feel our bodies, our health, life is unfixed and it's changing like moment to moment. And these photos are all of my photos. I do different series, but under the same umbrella of these themes. We never know what will happen next. I had to learn a different way to do photography, to learn to see literally and metaphorically. And I'm still discovering new ways by creating new bodies of work in my photography. When people first see these as photographs, to me, they're more than just simply flower or flora photos. To me, they represent all that I just told you about, but they're also, in a way, for me, my escape photos. They're my imagined worlds where I can see the uniqueness and the beauty that exists in these bits and pieces of things, and being able to explore the beauty and the decay. And I really tie it into the body, my physical challenges. And I like color. I also have other series that are not. What I wanted to show you is, and I'm gonna hold it up. So these are very, the images, they range from 8 or 9 to 14 to 14 by 22. I'm going to hold up some things. You could see how small I work. You could see that right there. So you could see these are all very, very tiny. Tiny, tiny elements, like the one with the water drop. Everything is really tiny. So you can see my finger and you can see that. So I like to work micro, macro. Just getting another piece here to show you with the different elements, like this one right here is called frayed, right here. You can see it on the background right there above my head, how tiny this is. So these are actually called pollen presenters from the insides of the flower. So everything is macro. So everything's very tiny. And but then when you see the actual images, you don't really know what the scale is, except that you can see that they're natural materials and elements. So yeah, I just really like working with floral materials, other natural materials, and finding new ways. The other piece, the ice piece, is the one that was at the end with all the bubbles. So that this one's called Split. So I kind of tried to find some metaphors to life, kind of before and after physical things. The one at the end, this one's called Rise. I try, no matter what I'm dealing with, as hard as it can be, to have some sense of resilience, because I think that's the only way, the only thing we can do in the course of dealing with things in life. So this one's called Entropy. And I just want to tell you, so entropy, it means a randomness or disorder of a system, unpredictable. The very first image that Christine showed was called Chaos. So they're kind of related, those two, in terms of the body, because there can be randomness. We never know what will happen, disorder of a system, unpredictable. And even though for me, I'm relating it to the body and to natural things that happen or unnatural medical things that happen, I think that it can also relate to other things in life.
So Marta, I know like you told us, during our class, but kind of the process of these shots, especially with the bubbles, and you kind of alluded to it. Some of these are frozen, and that's how you took the photos, or is this one also frozen? Like, what, if you don't mind sharing your secrets, what's the process of the bubbles and how you get these images?
It's both. Even when I've planned out, like, okay, I'm going to follow steps to do water, to do something, I can't repeat it. It just doesn't seem to repeat. And I know, when I would do other art forms too, when I used to paint or do a quick gesture sketch, if I didn't care about it, it would turn out great. And I try to recreate it, wouldn't. But in terms of the process, so using ice and water, those are elements of life. Ice represents to me frozen in time, a moment, a memory, something that happened. So I use both. So what you see, all of these, except for the one suspended, the little tiny vines, and then the blue and yellow, they're water and then ice. And yeah, lots of time experimenting and playing and just setting up my own scenes. And literally it's just in a little corner of my apartment. And I play with lights, as hard as it is. I think I had mentioned to you, there are times I have to do this, and it's hard. So, but just being able to escape. So even though there's physical pain, being able to create, that's something we all have, everybody here has within them. And, even if we try and squash it down, despite our challenges, and everybody has their own set of challenges and fears and insecurities, and struggles, but that's what we all have in common. Our common thread here today is that we all create. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Marta, if I could say, I just really enjoy your work, and I'm so glad you shared it. This series and also the other series that you shared with us in the group. And I feel like these images are so lush, and they are another world. You could walk into them, you could live in them, you could look at them for decades. And it's the type of work that doesn't need a backstory, but knowing the issue with your eyes just adds to a layer of richness. For me, it amplifies the story and makes it all the more interesting in the way that you work. And I love sort of knowing in a way that the health issue with your eyes limits your ability to go out. And so then you've made this little tiny microscopic world, but you've flipped it around and made it this enormous universe that I can go into. So that's just, like I said, knowing how it's done and where it's done just adds layers to richness. So thank you for making it and showing it and sharing it.
Oh, thank you, Julie, for saying that. I appreciate it. As I said in the group, and then even here today, there are, some people watching that I don't know. It's been hard to, to talk about it. Being somebody with physical challenges in any part of life or in the art world, especially if you're not known with a big CV, big track record, there have been, faced some, I guess I'll use the word discriminations or ignoring or devaluing. I think that relates to a lot of different things that people go through, whatever we deal with our own struggles. I know Christine has been really brave and vulnerable and shared about your personal struggles, and I really admire that. And that was how I first learned of you, Christine, when you were showing your early series talking about the body and everything. So I'm trying to become more brave and share that. But there are some people that don't want to deal with somebody who has some physical challenges, even though I don't, present that way. If I'm out at a reception, I don't, get into it. But yeah, thank you, Julie, for saying that. They are my own universes. That's why I call them kind of my escape photos, my imagined worlds. So thank you for that.
Adrienne. Oh, you're muted, Adrienne.
I am amazed at every time you tell your story, because when I look at these, it's true. There is a world, but I see no pain at all. I just see such wonder and everything. It's a new world. It's just beautiful. And when you show the tiny little pieces that you work with, it just amazes me to see the detail that you get. I mean, you have no idea the size of these at all. It just, I love seeing them, and I love hearing your story. But you don't even need it, because you make such wonderful worlds that I don't see any pain at all. I just see that you're really enjoying what you're doing, and I'm sorry to hear that it is painful to do it, but you do amazing work. I just love it.
Thank you, Adrienne. I appreciate that. Suzanne. Hi, Suzanne.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I just thought it would be nice to introduce myself, although it's the end of the show, but I came a bit late. I really had a good time learning about your pieces and seeing them. And myself, I can't really draw or do anything like this at all. I do a little bit of knitting and sewing and maybe jewelry making, but that's it. But my friend Alison Woods, who I thought would be here, through her, I actually found out about this Shoebox project, and I decided I'll be here. today, and I don't regret it. It was super nice to see everybody, and I wish you the best and lots of people seeing your works, because that's really it's so also quite interesting for me how different everyone is and how it all looks different. Every single one has a little angle that's so unique. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne. We actually have just a little bit more a surprise here, I think. I don't know if let's see, Natasha isn't here. Was she the last one? Oh, and Paul. That's right. And Paul isn't here. So there were more artists in the group, but they didn't make it for the artist talk. So then the last part is Dave made these structures that he gave to really anybody who wanted it in our group. And so Anne, Debra, Kathryn, and myself created, either like did, like Anne did her magic weaving, and Debra included hers with her painting, which is really cool. And then Kathryn did kind of this more like weaving collage, fiber work. I don't know what I want to call that. and I painted, and I painted some. And then these are examples of Dave's work. Dave, do you just want to talk for a second about what these are, why you created them?
Sure. Science fiction movies, worms coming out of the ground. I don't know. It's a wire frame on a wood dowel, and twist it and bend it, and then wrap it with the gauze plaster material, and cover it with whatever I can think of at the time. And these range in height from 16 inches to almost 2 feet, and just cover them with stuff. This is half of what I've done. The rest are up on my website with details. They were just fun, and I'm thrilled that other people wanted to take some and do something with what they did. And I'm blown away by what I see here from everybody. I'm kind of like, I want that. How much is that one going to be? I just feel like I'd love to add them to my collection, but it's like, where do you put more stuff? So I'm thrilled. Someone wants to buy it from you, Anne, sell them. Keep the money. Go out to dinner.
Well, Anne and I are trading.
Anybody?
Yes, trades.
Anne and I are trading. Dave, I'd love
there
to
you
trade
go.
with you too.
If someone wants to trade with me, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
All of mine are, just go to my website and they're all there. But I'm just, thank you so much for, just jumping in. I did do a table show years back where I kind of did the same thing. I made 18 identical tables and gave them to 18 different artists. And,
cool.
And they basically, like Cody Lusby and, some of these artists, Dave Conray, they're all Long Beach artists, and Dave Van Patten, Katie Stubblefield did one, and they just kind of like, okay, here's a table. It was just a raw table, and they just did their art to it, or whatever they wanted to do to it. So much like this. And I think it's just fun to collaborate. And, here's something, and you reimagine it. You imagine it using your materials and techniques and whatnot.
Well, this was like the perfect summation of the workshop and the show, the idea of community and collaboration and connection. Right. So yeah, I was so happy to, to do some and also to share, with everybody.
Well, thank you. I was honored for, to be a part of this.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, thank you everybody so much for being a part of the show, for being a part of the workshop, and being part of my community. It's like it just gets better the more people I meet and connect with, and yeah. So hopefully, one of these days we can get together in the real world. We'll have to plan a picnic or something. So, and thank you, Suzanne and Carol and Patty and Talia for being here and listening. And it is recorded. It'll be live on Shoebox Projects, and I'll also do a YouTube. And you're very welcome, Marta. And yeah, and the show will be, I mean, under current exhibitions for the next month, and then after that, it'll be under past exhibitions. So it'll be online. So definitely, you know, share, and I can't wait to see what everybody does, you know, after this. So it'll be great to, you know, see you at openings and see your art in the real world too. All righty. Well, I hope everybody has a great evening or night, wherever you are. Bye. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Christine, thank you to the group. It was wonderful. Everybody, it was really great.
Buddy.
Yay.
Bye. See you online.
Yep, for sure, for sure. Bye.
Oh, Christine, real quick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was thinking your other workshop that you're offering about the proposals. If I wasn't working, maybe. So I just want to tell you, have a good workshop. So
thank you. And we'll be doing it again. So
Yeah.
it's already been pretty popular. So we'll definitely be doing it again.
okay, have a great weekend and breathe, Christine. Breathe.
Yes, I know.
Okay, bye.
You too. Self-care. Bye.
Bye.